my name is Dr. Gordon Spence. I am the Program Director of the Masters of Business Coaching at Sydney Business School, which is part of the University of Wollongong, not the University of Sydney, part of the University of Wollongong. We are co-located, so we have campuses in both Wollongong and also in Sydney. We do most of our teaching in Sydney. 60% of our business school students are in Sydney. I run a program that is quite a niche program in many ways. So it's, we tend to have smaller class sizes, but we're very niche in the sense that what we're looking at is the application of coaching and coaching psychology within businesses and within organisations. So it's a great pleasure to be here tonight to talk to you a little bit about this topic area. It might interest some of you to know a little bit of background on me, some of my research interests. I am a lecturer, I'm a researcher, and I'm also a practitioner. In terms of my research interests, I have a strong interest in the area of employee engagement, which in many countries has become quite a hot topic. I'm currently engaged in a couple of projects at the moment looking at employee engagement and what some of the antecedents or drivers of employee engagement are. And one of those studies is looking at how the degree to which business coaching can actually create a driver of business engagement through the satisfaction of psychological needs. I'm a psychologist, so I tend to think about these things through a psychological set of lenses, but there's some of my interests in the area of employee engagement. So my talk tonight is going to be focused on really the integration of negotiation and coaching. I think when you look at these topic areas, we're talking about a set of defined and distinct set of skills, but they also have considerable overlap. What I'm going to focus mostly on is talking about how I think coaching can actually be provided as a way of helping people to develop excellence in this area of negotiation. And it might, many of you may not know that the area of coaching has come a long way in the last 10 or 15 years. I'm proud to say that a lot of the work, particularly the scientific work, being done in the area of coaching has been led from Australia, but it's also been quite strong in Europe as well. And I'm happy to say I've been a part of that. And the way in which I see them most naturally coming together is coaching being used as a way of enhancing people's skill sets and abilities in these areas and giving people the opportunity to be able to reflect on what they're doing in their professional work, in their working contexts, and using coaching as a way of developing those skills and abilities. So I'll talk about two things really. I'm going to talk about coaching as a process, as a fairly formal and structured process, and I'm also going to talk about coaching as an interpersonal style. I'm going to do that for two reasons. One reason that I'm going to do it is that, well, there's an important distinction to be made between the two things, but also it really does, I think, give us an opportunity to see how coaching can be used in a whole variety of different ways. Yes, we can employ people to come in and coach into our organisations, but we can also train managers and leaders to develop skill sets which can allow these learning processes to be implemented in organisations with great effect. So my hope is that you'll leave tonight feeling fairly convinced that coaching is a really good option for helping people to develop excellence in this area of negotiation. Oh, I've done it again. There you go. I need to take a course in how to use technology, I think. Okay. So look, the area of negotiation is one that I guess I sort of sit on the periphery of, but from what I know of negotiation, there's a lot of literature out there. There's a lot of material out there which tells people, you know, lots of do's and don'ts lists about how to do negotiation, how to do it well. From my peripheral view of this area, what I guess I've noticed is that this area now seems to be suggesting much more strongly that negotiation needs to be a process where people come out feeling like they have been able to obtain some advantage and that there's a win-win scenario being created. And I guess that makes lots of sense, because if negotiation, which it often can become quite adversarial and quite sort of conflict laden, is a difficult situation to be in, I guess, because when it comes to thinking about the long term, if people are entering into negotiations and coming out of it feeling like they've been beaten up or disadvantaged or tricked or whatever it might be, then there are obviously negative downstream consequences for being involved in negotiation processes of that sort. And so it makes plenty of sense to me that this field of negotiation is promoting this idea that negotiation really needs to be a situation where people come out having these win-win scenarios. I guess, though, there's a difficulty associated with that, and that's a tricky thing to do. And so the skills associated with being able to negotiate in this positive way are extremely subtle, I believe. And so the subtlety and the nuance associated with the skills is the other thing that really, I guess, fortifies this idea that in developing excellence in negotiation, we need to have a learning process. We need to have an opportunity to be able to reflect on these skills, these subtle, complex skills, and to be able to refine those over a period of time so that we can, like any skill set, get better and develop and grow and extend. So let me just talk a little bit about this idea of business coaching, what I'm really meaning. I'm going to give you an academic definition. It's a bit of a mouthful. This comes from early work done in this field by Dr. Tony Grant, who is at the University of Sydney. And Tony, some years ago, defined coaching as being a collaborative, solution-oriented, systematic process in which the coach facilitates the work performance, self-directed learning, and personal growth of individuals. Okay? I think that's actually one of the best definitions of coaching going around. I've added "and teams" because coaching is something that actually can be applied at the level of teams and groups as well. So there's a bit of a mouthful. I'm going to unpack that in just a moment. But a couple of things to note about this definition and other definitions of coaching is really about trying to pull out of people the innate capacities and the tacit learning and tacit knowledge that they have. It's about pulling out the capacity that people already have, rather than trying to put in what's not there, advice and information. Coaching, the way we define it at least, is very much about seeking to draw on the strengths that are already inherent in people. All right? I also like to think about coaching as being a learning alliance. As being two people coming together more in a spirit of collaboration with a sense of equality and seeking to work on I guess the salient goals and objectives of the person who is being coached. And so for me, one of the things that makes the most difference in coaching, or one of the key questions that I always think about when it comes to thinking about the efficacy of coaching, the effectiveness of coaching, is what have people learnt from the process? Right? Because if coaching is about anything, I think it's about self-sufficiency, and I think this is one of the things that makes it a really important topic for organisations to focus on. Putting coaching processes in place can help people to become more self-sufficient, be able to operate more independently in the world, and that's a very good thing from the point of view of developing an organisation's potential. So some characteristics of coaching. Well, I've already said it's quite a collaborative process. So what we're talking about here is two people coming together with reasonable equality, although it's not always possible in organisations, I understand that. And it comes with the assumption that people already have most of what they need within them. They have already got the talent, they've got some experience that resides within them that they may have got disconnected from. They have the things that they need to put together their own solutions. And in putting together one's own solutions, that's really important. Because if you want to just stop for a moment and differentiate coaching from other forms of professional assistance, I've just realised I'm standing right in your way. Sorry about that. I'll move around a bit. How about that? If you want to distinguish for a moment coaching from other forms of professional assistance, and things like mentoring, well, generally mentoring processes are very one-way. They're very one-way. They are about a mentee who doesn't have the knowledge, doesn't have the experience, receiving that knowledge and experience from somebody who does. Somebody who's been there, done that, has the war story, has the t-shirt, right? They have the experience and they pass that on. Now, from a point of view of someone's learning and development, I think that's a very good thing, but one of the problems with that can be that people then develop a dependency on the person that provides them with that information and those solutions. I think it's much more impactful if people are given the opportunity to develop their own solutions as much as they can, because when it comes to then implementing actions, right, that are associated with that solution generating activity, then they're more likely to hang on to that. They're less likely to get confused, they're less likely to try to remember what was it the mentor told me to do here, I've forgotten. So I think, as I keep on saying, coaching is very much about learning. It's the way that I certainly think about it. What are people learning? Because as people learn about their domain in greater and greater levels of detail, then they're more likely to be effective rather than just passively receiving the inputs of others. So it's collaborative, it's solution focused. So coaching is very much focused on looking at what's working and what can be learnt, rather than all the stuff that's going wrong and trying to engage in root cause analysis to try and work that out. Yes, problems are important. Coaching is not about being problem phobic. Right? It's about being solution focused and looking at what are the strengths, what are the things that I've learned, and what's already working that we can dovetail from. And so if you think about that from a negotiation standpoint, when a person's being coached around their negotiation skills, they would be perhaps looking at particular negotiations that they've been involved in and applying that kind of questioning process. What worked well, what didn't work so well, what were some of the things that I can take forward next time? So it's non-directive. This comes to the point that I was making before. It's non-directive because the assumption is that if you give people the space and you ask them the right sorts of questions, that people will be able to surface the things that they can use and use usefully. It is very results oriented, so it's targeted towards trying to get somewhere. So goal setting and goal striving is an important part of the coaching process as well, and it's an individualised approach. Right? And so when a coach works with somebody in an organisation around any set of skills, not just negotiation skills, but any part of their professional activities or any aspect of their role, it's very individualised. Okay, so the coach works with the person to decide what's the most valuable thing for us to focus on and how are we going to do that. So I'm talking to you now, I guess, about a process, and I said that I'd take this two ways, and this is the first way I wanted just to stop on, which is looking at coaching as a process. And so here is a model drawn from the coaching literature, which is called the cycle of self-regulation. We're essentially looking here at a basic model for the coaching process. It begins with, does this have a little laser pointer? I don't want to press any more buttons because I'll probably shut the whole system down. Oh, it works. Oh, that's great. Yes, that's my success for the night. So it commences with the establishment of some sort of goal. Now, within the context of negotiation, this might be something general, like I want to be a better negotiator, right? But it needs to have some sort of goal-setting component, some sort of goal clarification component, so that the relationship has a purpose. We know what we're working on. That can often take a little while, but once it's set, then we can start to move into a more active role. Starting to look at action plans. What am I going to do now to become a better negotiator? What are the things that I need to put in place to allow that to happen? And then we can move into action and start to do those things. So coaching will often lead to, and should lead to, the generation of concrete action steps that people go away and work on. And so then people get into this, what I'd call a reflective process, where they go and they act in the world. They then monitor their performance relative to the standards that they've set for themselves. They evaluate that performance, and then based on that evaluation, they make some judgments about whether the goal's right, whether the plan is right, or whether the action's right, and modifying and making changes where necessary. But that this is a process that is really a learning process. It's an action learning process. And this is the very process that coaching seeks to try and enliven, if you like. And then within coaching, again, another little process model, just quickly. This is a very well-known model within the coaching literature. It's called the GROW model. Okay, and all this is really, it's just a simple model for structuring time. Okay, so this is a very kind of logical, simple model for having effective conversations. That's all it is. That's all it is. It starts with establishment of some sort of an agenda or a goal for the conversation. It then spends some time looking at reality, what's going well, what's not going so well, that kind of conversation. Then moves towards looking at options. So based on the situation that you're in at the moment, based on things that have worked in the past, based on what you haven't even tried yet, what might you do? What might be a couple of things that you could try, okay, between now and the next time we meet? And then it wraps up with some steps, some things to do. And so it goes. And so I've put these up because they really, I guess, show how some of these models are very purposeful or purposive in terms of what they're trying to achieve. This really shows, I think, that what we're looking at here is a relationship with a purpose. We know what we're trying to do, but every conversation we have as part of that relationship also has a purpose, which drives towards the goals that the person is seeking to attain. And so, as I mentioned before, I think these processes here are very much about learning, are very much about supporting a person's learning in whatever domain they might be working in. So in many ways they're generic models that can be laid across a variety of different work domains and also be focused on a variety of different professional skills. These are the key questions for me, the ones around what have people learned as part of this process and what can they apply in action. The other perspective that I just wanted to bring to this is to move now away slightly from the more formalised process, because the way this often happens in organisations is that coaching gets done in very different ways depending on the organisation. A lot of organisations, particularly in Australia, will buy coaching into their organisation. They will bring people in externally to coach managers and leaders or teams around a variety of different business matters. I've just lost my train of thought. Oh, but there are other ways that can be done as well. One of the big trends in the coaching world now is the movement towards internal coaching. So a lot of organisations now are starting to see that it's actually more cost effective to employ people, right, have them be trained up as coaches, and then structure the internal environment in such a way so that those people can provide support to managers and leaders and teams within the organisation. Right? Quite a cost-effective way of doing it, and so lots of attention being given to that right now. Another way of bringing coaching into organisations is being done via the use of leader as coach, manager as coach type programs, where leaders and managers within the organisations get trained in basic coaching skills, coaching techniques and coaching processes so that they can adopt a style of leadership and management that can support these sorts of learning processes within the organisation. And so that's where I want to go now. I want to start to talk a little bit more about coaching as being an interpersonal style, which removes it from being a sort of more formalised process into a less formalised process. And what I wanted to do here was just focus on a couple of scenarios, some that may be familiar to you. I'm sure some of these are. And that is contexts such as mergers and acquisitions and offshoring. And I've picked these ones out, not completely at random, but because they're actually areas that I have 2 PhD students at the moment working in. I think they're 2 really interesting areas, and the areas that they are focused on are looking at work motivation within these particular contexts. And so the first is mergers and acquisitions. My student is looking at this area. It's a massive area in terms of the amount of mergers and acquisitions that seem to happen each year. There's an estimate of M&A deals in 2013, 2 trillion. And there are some estimates around failure rates in respect of M&A, which are quite interesting. 83% of deals seem to fail to deliver shareholder value, 53% decrease shareholder value based on estimates provided by Merger Market last year. Researchers in this area, and there hasn't been a whole lot of research done looking at some of the causes of the failure rates within M&A, are really starting now to draw attention to the human side of these processes as a potential explanation. And one of the things that's been focused on, where my PhD student is focusing her attention, is looking at the transfer of knowledge from founders and entrepreneurs as part of these processes. And the argument that's being made is that, and certainly there's been quite a bit of, there's a lot of literature about this, and certainly many books that have been published by founders and entrepreneurs who have not fared well in M&A processes, is that I'll often tell you that how poorly treated they are in post-acquisition environment, and that little consideration appears to be given to their perspective, and that one of the big impacts for a founder or an entrepreneur in a merger or an acquisition is that they experience a considerable, significant loss of autonomy. If you think about it, a founder or an entrepreneur starts a company from scratch and they pretty much have free rein. They create the company. They are able to operate in almost a fully autonomous way. And then when the company becomes so attractive that it becomes acquired, all of a sudden that autonomy diminishes very quickly, often overnight. Right? And the reason that this is important is that the transfer of knowledge from that key person or a small group of key individuals is critical then to the integration and successful ongoing functioning of the acquired enterprise. And so there's some issues in here around human relations within this context that are important. And another one, this is very topical in Australia right at the moment. Offshoring is happening at a great rate of knots within the Australian commercial environment. Several car manufacturers have recently announced that they'll be closing down their manufacturing operations in Australia. It's predicted that that's going to continue to increase for about 16% per annum over the next few years. So offshoring is a big part of what's happening in the Australian commercial scene right at the moment. Relocation of business processes from one country to another. And from an employee perspective, this creates an incredible environment, or a very damaging environment to work within. So within an offshoring context, what often happens is that the organisations say to their employees, okay, we're going to send this part of the operation to India in 18 months. Now what we need you to do is to stay with us for 18 months while we put you out of a job. Right? And so from a motivational standpoint, the offshoring process requires the engagement of employees if that is to be a successful endeavour. Right? Yet I think when it comes to offshoring and managing offshoring, organisations, and particularly some of the ones that I've come into contact with in Australia, have no clue what to do. I mean, I think they realise that people are fundamentally being impacted in the worst possible way. But I think a lot of organisations are a bit clueless about what to do about that. Okay, and so when you think about performance in these areas, in these particular contexts, we're really talking about negotiation with employees. And work productivity, work engagement becomes a product of a negotiation that occurs between the organisation and its employees. And so I think there's an interesting coming together here between negotiation and coaching skills. And I see coaching skills as being a set of skills that could greatly assist organisations to be able to manage these sorts of challenging scenarios much better. And so I've just sort of stepped that out a little bit here. In the M&A context, what's the company need? Well, the company needs many things, I understand that, but one thing that's particularly important is transfer of knowledge. What does the employee need? What does the founder or the entrepreneur need? Well, to still feel autonomous and effective, because that's often one of the things that seems to get compromised. The best possible outcome for the organisation, proactive transfer of knowledge and active engagement in that process. The worst possible outcome would be the premature exit of the founder, poor integration. In the offshoring context, a smooth relocation of the business functions, what the company needs and what does the employee need? Well, at a psychological needs level, there's a whole variety of things that get impacted. People start to feel not cared for. They feel like they're kind of lost and they don't have a strong sense of the way forward. Right? I think the way organisations respond to these events can help people to at least re-establish some sense of that. That's my point. The best outcome, proactive transfer of knowledge and active engagement. The worst outcome, a lack of care and urgency, absenteeism, a variety of different things become the worst possible outcome, I think, in that scenario. A couple of slides to go and then I will hand over. So some useful coaching skills for managers and leaders that can be applied in the two contexts that I've just talked about and others as well. I think goal clarification is one. Working with people as manager or as a leader, trying to help them assist to articulate some sort of desired future state, where it is that they want to head. It might be something like this, you know, asking solution-focused questions like, if this integration was to proceed well, how would it look from your perspective? If you were wanting to try and engage a founder or an entrepreneur who has just been acquired by a firm to engage and feel as though their voice is being heard, then these are potentially the sorts of questions that may be able to do it. I think we can't get away from active listening as a set of skills that is critically important. Obviously critically important in negotiation, critically important in coaching as well. Right? Full engagement and trying to understand what the other person's perspective is and trying to confirm that. And there's a variety of different ways that we can do it. I won't step through that in any great detail at this point. I think interpersonal skills are really important, particularly in these difficult contexts like M&A, integrations and offshoring. These are difficult situations for people to be in and for difficult conversations for people to have. People will have reactions to them, some of them will be strong reactions, those reactions need to be managed. Here I think is where our emotional intelligence skills and our ability to be mindful and non-reactive become critically important. Again, these are difficult skills to develop and I think some support is required. Interpersonal skills are also obviously important, doing things like displaying empathy and being able to convey to people that you understand how they feel. And solution-focused techniques are also critically important as well. And this is really about using questions to help people develop a picture of what a positive outcome might be. And there's, again, a variety of those sorts of questions as well. So I think many of the skill sets that underpin negotiation also underpin coaching. I think in situations and organisations, the negotiation between managers and employees are critically important because they're the things that actually then lead to high levels of engagement, high levels of productivity, and I think I see a real role for coaching skills to play in that context as well. So we have the formal, we have the more informal. Both are important, both can be used in different ways. Lots of options for organisations these days for being able to utilise coaching to grow the capacity of organisations, but also to support learning around a core set of skills which you focus on here at the business school, which is negotiation skill. That will do me for now. I'm happy to answer questions at the end when we have the panel. Okay. Okay.
Then we receive the questions, all together in the end. So now, Malavika.
Yeah, sure. Can I have some light here, please? Yes.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. I'm not so dependent on my slides. Okay. When was the last time you negotiated successfully with your bosses? When was the last time? Okay, I see.
4 months ago.
4 months ago. Yes. When I was, when I just started work, and my boss always used to tell me, do this, do this, do this, do this. I used to start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I used to finish at 9 o'clock in the evening. I couldn't go out for movies, and I couldn't go out. I couldn't have a boyfriend, but couldn't do much. And then it all started to focus on how to negotiate. Are you okay? I feel your pain. So as Professor Gordon was talking about, self-sufficiency in coaching, how coaching is important, I drifted to an experience when I was a regional head for DHL. And the mandate that was given to me was to turn the customer service, which was a support function at DHL at that time, I'm talking about 2002, and convert it into a service excellence, We are a service industry people, and we wanted to make service centers which are excellent and excellent service skills. So that was a huge mandate, and I said, okay, let's take up the challenge. I shifted from telecom into logistics, okay. Negotiated a good salary, okay. And as I started to work and deliver results in the field, and started to get the key performance indicators going, how many calls to be picked up within 5 seconds or 10 seconds. So I was handling a call center. I had a contact center. I had the whole service people under me. So the first 3 months we worked on really, getting around the KPIs, and we were delivering results. And we had a review meeting. My boss was very happy with me. I was happy. On the 5th month, my boss comes into my cabin, sits down, a big gesture. How are you doing? I said, I'm fine. Things are looking up. And he said, Malavika, there's a very funny thing that's happening in your contact center. I said, what happened? What's the funny thing here? He says, interestingly, when you are in the contact center, everything works fine. The people are going and showing great behavior. The processes are okay. Everything is working fine. The KPIs are met. But the moment you step outside and go to a customer call, things seem to crash down here. So I found a way to put you into the office. Do not go for customer calls. That was a wake-up call for me, that I was delivering results, but was I able to manage my people, negotiate and coach to be self-sufficient so that they can deliver results when I'm not around. And that is the time when I said, I need to bring in coaching as a regular part of my work scenarios. So today I'm going to talk more about experiences. I'm going to talk about 4 case studies in the next 15, 20 minutes. And take you through and tell me how you mirror those emotions with me, okay? I would like to start off with a quotation by Martin Luther King Jr. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. The field of coaching and negotiation is such that we have problems, we have failures, but we still have to keep moving. And I thank you all for coming here and taking that step towards keep exploring, keep experimenting, and keep excelling. So thank you so much for being here. Before I get into those 4 case studies, I would like to talk to you about and put your question, quick question, and the question is right here. The question is, what do you want to achieve as a manager, as a leader in your corporate world? So I want you to think about how much money would you like to make after 1 year? Just think of a number here, somewhere up. How much money you think you would like to make in the next 1 year? Yes? Is the number flashing? Okay, I can already see dollar signs in your eyes, right? Now think about, look at the kind of money that you're making right now. Okay? I have smiles and I have eyes rolling over around, yes? For some of us, the gap is just small. And for some of us, the gap is huge. Now what you are going to do in this 1 year and how you're going to negotiate and how you need to move forward is your skill. And if your gaps are high, well, I must tell you, Chao, everybody needs a negotiation workshop, that's for sure, yes. Okay. It's very, very critical that the greater clarity and the goal that we have for ourselves, we will be able to reach that goal if we have clarity over there. My next question to you is, are you getting the best out of your people's performance? For managers and leaders, don't we all think sometimes, and tell me if I mirror your emotion, when I was working in advertising and I was servicing Electrolux, I always used to feel, I work more than my team. I'm doing much more. And I take on more pressure, I take on more stress, and my team maybe is not doing that much. I used to feel that way. Going back to the DHL example, we often want support from our teams. We want to understand what they can do best, and we fall apart totally. Because we don't have the time to coach them and get the best out of them. I'll give you an example. When I was servicing Electrolux and LG through an advertising agency, I had an account executive. Now this account executive was a young guy, all muscled out, wearing lovely shirts, ties. However, when he would go to Electrolux and the marketing head would not like him. He thought that he was too young. He thought that he didn't know much about work. And he was unable to build a rapport with the marketing head. And every time he used to come back feeling sad, feeling dejected, and saying, what do I do? I, as an account manager, was spending a lot of time to douse the fire. Every time there's a problem and I would have to come in and say, Malavika, can you help me? As an account manager, I always thought, it's your job. You have to manage the account. Just go on, carry on, think about it, how to manage the client, and move forward. One fine day, he came back and said, Malavika, can you just take me off this account? So what happened? I don't think I can handle it. I don't think that I can create that rapport. And I'm always into trouble. That was the day when I had that conversation with him. From our perspective right now, it was a coaching conversation. At that time, it was just a conversation. And I started to ask him questions, and I asked him what were the problems and how he managed and get the emotion out of the entire thoughts that he was going through. And then we got down. Him coming out with solutions. Yes, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can send him this material. Maybe I can do that, and maybe that can help. And why was the client moving in that direction? After that talk, he was suddenly very bright. He had a moment and he said, I want to try something different. That is the point of an excellent coaching conversation. And you want your employees, you want your team to get started and not feel dejected. Have a moment and say, yes, I think I can do that. And turn around those teams. So the more we understand how to get the best out of people, the more coaching that we are going to be using. So let's go straight into the first of my 4 corporate cases. Okay, and now these are real-world cases from the clients that I've been working with. Now this particular case is for an organization into IT components. They make IT components, they manufacture all of that, and they send it all out. They are market leaders, and the challenge for the sales leader, and since you're a market leader, you have a brand, you can get the premium pricing, and although the competition is growing, you have much cheaper material coming into the markets. You have to deliver results, and you have to manage extremely virtual teams, So I had the sales leader who was sitting in Dubai, and he was managing a team in Africa and the emerging markets this side up to Asia, virtually. Now the problem was an external condition happened, and their facility in Bangkok, there was these floods. If you remember 2012, there was so many floods coming up. The entire capacity went down, the manufacturing went down, and there was nobody to take the material. There was nobody to put pipeline into that. A big challenge for the sales leader, what to do. They were thinking of increasing their sales by 20%, but here they were struggling to even make orders happen because the capacity was not there. A big challenge in the real, and these are real scenarios. When the pricing was high, they could not give discounts. The pricing was much, much more. And so he decided to get everybody together. He said, I'm not able to sell I need to get to the revenues and we need to do this. Otherwise, our price, the share price will go down straight away. We are going to reduce market share, and we are also going to have the competition coming in. Now, these are real-world scenarios. So we got in, and we had a talk with the sales leader, and we got these 28 people in a room in a hill station, and we got down talking. In those informal chats, I realized that the salespeople, the sales managers and sales leaders of these regions said, gosh, Malavika, the price is too high. We are unable to sell. We are unable to put money into the distributors and say that you sell at a premium price. We are being pushed to sell on a lower price. The sales leader got the CFO, got the marketing head, and told, we cannot reduce the price. That's final. So there's no negotiation. Don't ask for discounts, guys. Just go and sell. And more we talked, we realized that the salespeople were getting pushed into a conversation on pricing, and they did not have time to sell on the brand value, on the image, on all the other benefits that were coming to the customer. Soon, the sales leader realized that the issue is not anything except the skill of the salespeople to sell and to negotiate. That's it. And that is the time when he said, I want to change the mindset of these people. We need to bring in training or coaching or internal coaching, and let's see how we can do it together. So from a position where the sales leader was saying, hey, you go and sell, and I want the revenues, he changed his position through coaching and said, let's look at how we are going to have that conversation with the distributors, how we are going to sell at a higher price, and I hope you agree with me on that. Okay, let's go to the next case study. Now this is about the market leader, you know, where the organization is a market leader. Let me take you to a challenge of a sales leader where it's a new entrant in a new geography. So many of us are entrepreneurs and we are creating new companies. IT companies are coming up. And this was a sales leader who was leading a company in China, in Hong Kong. And for those of you who worked in the Hong Kong market, it can get very tricky. In the Chinese market, it can get extremely tricky. How many of you have been in Hong Kong? Yes? Okay, thank you. So the whole idea was, I need more hunters. That's what the sales guys say. I need people who can hunt down the client. I need people who can really sell and negotiate very well. So he called me up and he says, Malavika, can you look out for hunters? Can you network me with people who are really good at selling? I said, why? What happened? He said, remember I picked 2 people into this region of Hong Kong and China, but for the last 1 quarter, nothing is working out for us. The revenues are not being met. So I said, what are you doing right now? I said, nothing. I just want more people and more things to come up. So I said, why don't you have a conversation and really find out what is the real problem? So we got down these 4 people together into a room and we started to talk. It's always good to have a conversation and find out what's going on. The real deal there, it turned out, was not the relationship with the Chinese clients. They were okay. Not the rapport building. That was fine. Building relationship was just okay. They were unable to come out with creative options. They were just selling the way it was given to them. So we brainstormed, the sales leader then brainstormed around what could be those creative options. And people came out with options like, let's give a 10 to 20% flat discount straight away. Maybe that will entice the client. Maybe the customer would be interested. So one of the sales guys says, no, that didn't work out. Hey, why don't we give them a resource to try for 15 days? And maybe that will entice them. He said, hey, that's a good one. I never thought of that. The third one came out and said, maybe we can just give them one resource because they don't have space for headcount. And we can say that this one resource can work for 1.5 times the resource, and we can get them to pay a little bit higher. Now, these are options, various options of negotiation that can really, really excite salespeople and say, I want to try that one out, especially in solution selling game. And when the sales leader realized that there's no point pushing these people to have a better rapport with the Chinese clients, it was more important to come up with options. The whole confidence changed. The salespeople became self-sufficient, they started to think more, and they started to decide much more. So we've done 2 cases of challenges of sales leaders. Let's go to the third one and see what's happening with the challenge of the customer service head. These days, there's a lot of pressure to work out the customer experience and have so many strategies on have customer service, etc. And I've myself been into DHL, and I understand the pressure. There's a whole lot of technology investment for which you need to negotiate with your internal clients. So you have the chief technology officer, you have the chief financial officer, the CEO, and you have a steering committee in which you have to make a business case and get started. That is the time when your negotiation coaching skills will come up straight away. We have to establish this investment into business outcomes and gain the stakeholders' agreement and create the right value. So there was this customer who called and said, Malavika, from your experience, what do you think I should be doing? I'm unable to get the budget for the technology investment that I want to do for my customer experience measurement. How should I go about doing that? And we got down talking. And one thing led to the other. The whole idea was his skill to negotiate with the stakeholders and his skill to coach people in different silos, as we say, to become influencers and really, really change the mindset even of the top brass. One case and example was, if the cost per call, we service the customers and we look at the costs, and if the cost per call means the call that comes into the contact center, if the cost per call increases, is it good or bad for the organization? Simple question. If the cost of servicing a customer call increases, is it good or bad for the organization? The chief financial, yes? The chief financial officer said, bad. He looked at the cost, yeah? Whereas the customer experience said, it's good. How? And he said, cost per call is a formula with a denominator that says total cost upon total number of calls. Okay? And you can have a higher number if the calls decrease. So if the denominator decreases, the cost per call will go up, right? But then at the end of the day, it's really good to have less calls in the system so that we can manage it better. So though the cost per call is going up, but the efficiency levels are also going up. And those were the kind of negotiations that he had to go into with his internal stakeholders, especially the CFO, to really ask for budgets. And again, negotiation and coaching for the leader is extremely, extremely important. Let's go to the next one, and the final one, and that says the human resource leader. These days, a lot of human resource people are going through the problem of having a leadership pipeline. Now, this was a failed case story. I got this call from the HR head, and he said to me, I lost it. I have not been able to get the budget to establish a clear pipeline within the organization. And we got down talking. The entire conversation went around, the budget was approved, but then scrapped at the last minute. What happened? He says, the real value of establishing the pipeline, it was very difficult to get everybody in the room, in front of the steering committee, to say yes to. and the chief financial officer just got me down over there. I said, how important it was for you to build the leadership pipeline? He said, extremely important, because the skill sets are required, and we are really going through a bad patch. We need these leaders. What is happening is that these leaders are also moving out of the organization. It's so easy to just chuck your job and then go find one more. So I want to hold them. And it was very important for me to establish the pipeline. Yet, I have failed. With more conversation with him, we realized his power of negotiation and his power of coaching his team on how to build business cases around the real project. And as leaders, we have to build business cases around those projects. We have to go out there and ask for budgets. We have to go and get more and more revenues. So with these 4 case studies, it's important that we deliver results. We all are going into delivering results straight away. And from my experience in the last 2 decades, I realized that the more we focus on results, we forget the people. And the more we focus on the people, the results will get delivered automatically. So deliver results by developing people through negotiation and coaching. And the only way that you can do is build strong mindsets and reinforce desired behavior. Negotiation and coaching. And as Professor Gordon also said, you know, that coaching can be done by the managers themselves. It's a part and parcel of our daily routine as leaders to really do this. Delivering results and developing people can be a stormy ride, or it can just fly for you like a dream. For most of us, it's been a comedy of errors, and it all depends on you, and you may take it as you like it. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to have you all tonight, and also it's a really big my honor to be a part of panelist. Before starting my presentation, I want to ask you one question very quickly. How many people already been here when we have a first and second SIRENE before? Anyone? The first SIRENE, the second SIRENE. We had this seminar before. This is our third one. Yeah, how many people? Okay. So, do you remember what was the topic about, the first or second SIRENE? Our this negotiation seminar. Remember the topic? Cross-culture. Yeah, cross-culture. And that was the first SIRENE. And anyone remember the second SIRENE we had in January? No one remember? Yeah.
It was Ta-Wei who was talking.
Yeah.
And it was about negotiation.
Yeah, that was probably open workshop for the negotiation strategy. The second SIRENE's topic was about human capital market. So the second one was negotiation for human capital market. The reason that I'm asking this question, actually these 3 key terms for the first and second and third SIRENE is all related myself. So first one was cross-culture. That means actually I'm from Korea. So I came here about 3 years ago. I got a job, and then now I moved from Apple to come here. And second one was HR, the human capital market, because I was a HR manager in Korea. I was involved in recruiting process, so that was a kind of part of my job. And also I studied IO psychology in Korea, in Seoul. And then second degree was in coaching psychology, and that's why we got to know each other. He was my professor about 5 years ago when I studied in the University of Sydney. Such a big honor to have you. And then this coach was the job title when I worked for Apple. So I was a corporate trainer and coach, and working with the sales and service, and also leadership, leaders, and also senior manager. So let them have the better sales strategy but also let them have a better interpersonal skill in terms of their coaching and leadership skill. So this is the 3 keywords, and then so now you can see who is the decision maker in terms of the choose the SIRENE topic, right? So now I want to study this idea. Okay, I just joined the essay about exactly 1 year ago. So from the day one, this was the question, and still this is the question every day I'm asking myself. How can I help them to be a better negotiator? So through this question, I try to make a slide and then sharing some story. So hopefully, as Gordon said, when you leave this classroom, I hope you get a better idea in terms of negotiation and also coaching skill as well. Today, it's really focused on the coaching lens. So how we developed the negotiators' strategy through the coaching model, through the coaching lens, especially the case study that we've been through together in Taiwan last year. Because Ta-Wei and myself and also another researcher from Paris, we all invited to the Taiwan government. We did have a FTA negotiation program for the government officer. And then at the time, as a coach, as an observer, we run through this program, and it was really great feedback we had. So I want to introduce this idea, and also I want to encourage you think about how this idea can implement in your life, day in, day out, because I believe that we are all actually negotiator and also manager or leader as well. So the final question for you in the end of session will be, okay, this is an interesting idea. How do you implement this idea in your personal setting? Okay, let's just imagine that you are 30 years old, everyone. Everyone is 30 years old. And also the good news is you're back to the single. So although you're married, not married, doesn't matter. You are all 30s and you are all single. That means you are in the right age to find your significant others. You want to meet some people, right? Okay, so I can see the loads of big smile on your face. Yes, yes. So one of your friends set a blind date for you, very generous. And Saturday night, you pick up the best clothes and then ready to go and then meet the person in that setting, in front of a movie theater or in a beautiful romantic restaurant. And then you find this guy, if you're the girl. And all of a sudden, you think, oh my God, if I find you again, the friend you introduced this guy, I'm gonna smash you or kill you or whatever. And then I thought, okay, should I just run away? I just pretend I'm not Jasmine, that maybe you confused me? Or how can I deal with this situation? Maybe you have to deal with to figure out more. Why your friends, your best friends, make a disappointment for you. You have to figure out more, right? You can't just run away. So you asking several questions about this guy, okay, before coming to Singapore, which country stay, how long in Singapore, You want to know about their past. Just make a double confirm. This is not the guy that I was looking for, or this is the guy that I'm looking for. And then after that, this questioning is going to the different time zone, naturally going to the tomorrow. Because these 3 concepts actually the perfect concept to get to know some people, not just as of today, understanding their past and also understanding the future is so important. And as a recruiter or as a HR manager, we already doing this way. When you screen the resume, you want to know about these people as of today, but also you want to check about their past experience. And also we usually ask the people, okay, what's your vision and goal? So this is a methodology, and then it's a very simple methodology because we all know that understanding their past, today and tomorrow, and I apply this idea in terms of the coaching model that I use. Okay. This is a Taiwan government training case, so I try to make some example like this way. So we are supposed to train about 30 Taiwan government officers in a big training room. And then we are given the 3 days in terms of the FTA negotiation. So as your coach, what I did, I have to understand them before meeting them. I have to understand because I'm not that much experienced negotiator at all. So for me, it's so critical to have a trust building before meeting them. So I look at this module in terms of the dual console model. So as Malavika mentioned about it, when you look at the people, sometimes you lose the problem issue. When you look at the problem, sometimes you lose the people issue. So as a negotiator, actually we all have some tendency between this concern for yourself and concern for others. We are somewhere. Sometimes you are very competitive, sometimes you are very accommodative. So I send out this questionnaire before meeting them. So everyone, especially 5 selected Taiwan government officers, very, very seasoned. They are working for the government more than 20 years. And then they were given this questionnaire. It's quite long, but I just make a screenshot for your information. It's a quality collection and also quantitative idea as well. So I analyze their negotiation behavior based on this model. And also I ask them about the strengths and weakness and also the worst scenario as a negotiator. So they let me have their own story. So even though we didn't meet each other, this sort of the methodology gave us a kind of trust building and also let them ready to meet their coach when they come to the training room. And then we have a 3 days observation and talk and try to build more trust each other. And then let's go back to the page 2, the negotiation simulation. This negotiation training is very, very, very intensive. So they've been through the very complicated simulation, sometimes one-to-one negotiation, sometimes multi-part negotiation. So they do need an internal negotiation agreement first to make a group negotiation. Sometimes internal negotiation is much harder than external negotiation. It always happens. Yes. So they have to understand this negotiation simulation. As your coach, what I did, I declare I'm kind of invisible lady. So whenever they're doing the negotiation simulation, I just very quietly sit next to them and then try to observe as much as possible, including their bubble language and also non-bubble language as well. So I do have my own notes and then write down as much as possible to give them feedback. So this is some of the picture for your reference. So this is a TA negotiation workshop. It happened about 22nd to 24th in October in Taiwan, in Taipei. So there were some senior officers there and some young people, but we choose the 5 people who has a quite seasoned government officer, this case. And you can see some ladies, they do prepare the simulation and also going through the negotiation each other, like that. And then the final point is, okay, so when we look at this negotiation training and workshop program all over the world, including Harvard, MIT, Yale, INSEAD, this sort of the top education organization, when we look at it, many negotiation program is really focused on the simulation, but again, they quite neglect to look at their past and their future. I believe that the reason is because it takes too much energy, and also time, and also cost as well. Because usually this negotiation training is happen when we meet each other as a trainer, as a participant. Let's do it. Today's boom, gone, and bye-bye. Whether you are really apply you learn this negotiation strategy in your life or not, actually it's not my business anymore. So I really see that this is a big gap. So let them have self and peer assessment tool here. So this is a real case. I just covered their name just in case. So you can see some example. So this is example number 1. Can you see that they're rating? The number is about from 7. 7 is the lowest score, and then 9 is the highest score. So their average of the negotiation behavior, they believe that this lady or the guy believe that I'm pretty good negotiator, right? I'm pretty good. So I'm very confident. How about this? All-seasoned government officer. They are starting from 1, 2, 3, maximum is 6. There is no score more than 6. Comparing this, can you imagine that these two people is negotiating each other, right? And then example 3, a little bit moderate, starting from number 2, but still about 6 is the highest score. There is some reason I asked them why you thinking about your score is only 4 or 5, and let them write as well. And also this is another example, and the score is around 5, 6, 7, something like that. This is a Taiwan government case, but we developed the peer assessment as well. But back then, it was a quite complicated simulation model because it's FTA. So it's quite hard to get your peer assessment back then. So what we did is we invite the corporate or university professors about a couple of months ago, and then we run this session. What I want to show is as an example, this is a pink sheet is a peer assessment form. You can see this is an example from that training. And this is self-assessment. This is his or her peer assessment. It's interestingly, if you are in a negotiation, if you are negotiate each other, I know there must be some area for improvement for me to be a better negotiator. But think about that. If you are negotiating with me, do you think you can give me some tips and ideas for me? You think? In reality, no one. Because I don't want you to be a better negotiator. Because it's a stupid thing, right? I want to win this game. Why I need to give you the tip? But in the training setting, actually, this idea is not right. Because once we go through the simulation, and I will be your counterpartner, and after that, once we finish the simulation, you can be the best coach. Because we've been together the last 1 hour, really, really hot topic, and then actually I can see yourself as a good negotiator or average negotiator, where is the area for improvement. I can sense, and also I can give some example as well. So we put this idea. So I just combined these two slides. As you can see, this blue box is actually the self-assessment higher than peer assessment. And this pink box is actually your peers assess you actually more generous than yourself. So there is a quite different gap. And also we always emphasize the result of negotiation is not just winning the game, because you have the tag on your back when you left the negotiation table. We call it reputation. So in terms of your negotiation, you believe that you're pretty all right, but sometimes you have to check with your counterpartner. Exactly like a leadership style. When you assess your leadership, you believe that you are pretty okay leader. You want to believe that I'm quite okay leader, or quite good leader, or a great leader. But if this question actually goes to your subordinate, your employee, the rating very high likely lower than what you're thinking. So sometimes, I know it's a very brutal figures and fact, but sometimes we have to know where is the blind spot, and also how can use this mirror to make me a better negotiator. So after 3 days of Taiwan negotiation training, we came back to Singapore. They obviously work in Taipei. So we set up the negotiation coaching session for 1 hour for 5 people, and then going through this idea. So as I said that I have to understand their negotiation behavior. So I do have some analysis the factors in terms of their negotiation behavior style. And also I update them in terms of what kind of the language they use. So one of the very seasoned female government officer, she always uses you deny these words. And I can sense that their counterpartner is always, their face is quite frozen, and also I can sense that they're emotionally quite devastated. Because it sounds like so negative, but the thing is, when I mentioned about it, actually, you know, do you remember that you mentioned these words quite often when you were negotiating? But amazingly, she never ever understand that. She said, did I? Really? No, I never thought about that, but are you sure? So again, when you are in a negotiating situation, actually sometimes you just forget yourself. You forget all the interaction between you and me. Sometimes you can't focus on what you're saying. You can't focus on what kind of energy you can bring to your counterpartner. Because I want to finish this negotiation as soon as possible and then get the result and then want to say goodbye. So sometimes they lost the track in terms of what they say. And also, as I study coaching psychology, so we check the beginner challenge and solution, and also opportunity and action item and following months. This is an example, as I show. This is example 2 that we check. Obviously, it's impossible to check all the elements in terms of their negotiation strategy. So naturally, we spend some time in terms of the area for improvement. So to make a perfect time as much as possible. So rather than focusing on their idea. So of course, I let them choose which area they want to develop as much as possible. And as Gordon mentioned about it, this is a kind of goal setting theory or the very simple version of the coaching, but it's so powerful. And also I use this scroll model when I work for Apple as a corporate trainer and coach. When we're working the sales team or service team and leadership team, we always use this scroll model. So this is a real example. As you can see, this lady, she said that her goal is strengthening the interpersonal relationship effectively because, as you can see, she's very logical. She's a very seasoned government officer working in the energy sector. But the thing is, her issue is very less focusing on the relationship building and also too prone to decision making. So she is a typical person who are very logical and also love the figure and fact, and then want to deliver this idea and try to bargain as much as possible and then go. But the thing is, she mentioned about that, actually her boss negotiation style is exactly like that. So mentoring, we mentioned about mentoring. You are quite independent on the senior who has some specific behavior and idea. Actually, you naturally learn this issue, and also it can be sometimes a problem for you. So we going through the opportunity part. So understanding stakeholder is really about the people issue over here, and then making a wrap-up session. So it's time. It's already 20 minutes. So the 3 lessons learned from this negotiation, training, and coaching. I learned these 3 big things. The first thing is, regardless you are working in a government sector or a corporate sector or education sector, you're female, male, 20 years experience, 1 year experience, doesn't matter. You do have your own blind spot. You just don't know where it is. That means if you are going through this negotiation coaching session or reflection session, actually you realize that. And also, one of the government officers who gave me a feedback is, Jasmine, you know what? I was working for the Taiwan government more than almost 20 years, but no one dared to say about my negotiation strategy and style yet. Because obviously there are subordinates, no way to mention about it, and also negotiation is very secretively done, right? In the table, just one-to-one, so there is no way he can get us some good feedback. So the first thing is, regardless of how much you season, you do have your blind spot. The second is, all the negotiators that I met, actually they are team leaders and very seasoned managers as well. That means when they go back to their office, actually it's not an individual skill set. you can make a team's effectiveness. That means you have to be a very good change agent. Once you learn the negotiation strategy, once you get back to your organization, actually you have to implement this idea for your employee as well. So this is another critical part to make a bigger pie. And the third one is, again, negotiation is really never-ending journey. This is good news or bad news. It's never ever ending, because if you are a leader, actually leadership is, for me, is relatively easier, because once you're the leader, you know who will be your employee, and then you can customize your leadership for them. Personality basis, their experience basis, female or emotional, whatever. I can adapt my leadership style to them after 6 months later, then it's okay. But as a negotiator, you can't predict your counterpartner's personality that much easily. It's not like straightforward. Because this negotiation is, once you've done it, maybe you never met same counterpartner anymore. You're gonna meet a different negotiation, inside, outside, internally, externally. So the good news or bad news is your negotiation, this journey to learn be a negotiator is never ever end. So these are 3 key factors I wish you can bring up when you leave this classroom. The first thing is, again, reflection. Think about how much you are confident about negotiator, and second, how much you are confident when you speak out your negotiation style with your counterpartner or your employee or anyone around you. And then ask them a favor to give us some feedback to show your blind spot with the multiple mirrors. And second is, again, it's not individual skill set anymore if you are a team leader. So you must think about how can you spread out this idea within the team. And third, practice, practice, practice. That's my presentation sum up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. So now we have to invite, Malavika and Golden to come back to the stage again. So now the floor is yours, my friends. Feel free to propose your question to our speakers. Yes, thank you. Yeah, please. So is anyone who like to be the first one?
Okay.
Any questions? Now the floor is yours.
Hi, Abbas Biani, local BSF. On this coaching and negotiation, what is the ratio of compromise? Because in the end, somebody has to compromise some portion. Now, what percentage of compromise is there in this whole game in general?
So your question is who should compromise, and then how much they should compromise?
Because in the end, if parties are 2 or 3 or many, in the end, there would be certain portion of compromise. Because there are certain mindsets, you cannot change them, but then you can accept a different point of view. You can actually practice empathy, right? So that means that you're compromising at certain facts, right? Or not facts, certain points. So negotiation covers this kind of within negotiation.
Okay. So
yeah, look, I think compromise only becomes so look, my area of expertise is coaching as opposed to negotiation specifically, but I think there's a psychology associated with negotiation that that is important, and the part of that is what you're saying, which is being able to, I think that the root or the starting point for compromise comes in the understanding of the other's perspective relative to one's own, and staying in conversations which seek to try and hold together one perspective with another, such that the possibility of seeing where multiple interests lie and where points of difference exist is clearer. With the development of understanding of each perspective, then I think people over time get an opportunity to see where compromise can be real and possible. So I think the big issue for people around negotiation is actually staying in conversations for long enough to see that. And I think it's sort of starts to, I mean, you know, your world peace question, I'm not sure I'm ably qualified to answer that question, and I don't know anybody on the planet that's got the solution to that. But I do think the sticking in the conversations for long enough is a key part of that. And that's what I think human beings have a tendency to not want to do, because coming into contact with a set of, a different perspective which is in conflict with one's own is a difficult situation to encounter. And so it you know, as human beings, we are programmed to want to try and diminish and put that sort of tension to bed internally. And so we've got good strategies for doing that. But turning towards the tension when people come together with different perspectives, I think is a real skill. It requires mindfulness, it requires an ability to not be reactive in the presence of a differing opinion or a differing attitude or perspective. That's hard. That's hard to do. But I think people can get better at it if they're prepared to and committed to it.
So, Malavika, you want to?
And taking it further, you know, where you know, Professor Gordon says that you have to be long enough in the conversation. I think why it's important to be long enough in the conversation is to find that common ground. And when we find that common ground, then that is the time that we can move away from the position of compromise to a position of collaboration. The way we are programmed, the language that we use, and then the behavior. So programming, the way we think, the language that we use, and then we get to the behavior. And the more we understand each other's view of the world, because at one point in time, you will never know everything what's going on the other side. So the more we understand the view, get to a common ground, and that's the time the negotiation can move further and move from compromise to collaboration, I think.
Yeah. And for me, actually, it's pretty much similar. So the amount, how much you can compromise is sometimes not that much important. When you can make a compromise, and also how to make a compromise is sometimes very important. For example, if I want to sell this bottle to you as a $100, but you want to get this one as soon as possible, and then I said, how about $100? And then you said, okay, how about $95? And I said, oh, okay. Then after this deal, you're thinking about, oh, should I say it's 90? Should I say 80? And also myself, should I propose 150? Because if we compromise so quickly, that means there is a gap we dwelling about. Well, is it really good negotiation or not? And also, I didn't ask you further why you need compromise, why you need some discount. And also, you didn't ask me how much I'm bearing the cost to discount. So when and also how is more critical rather than amount, because we can be flexible, depends on this condition. But without discovering the condition, how much actually for me is just less meaningful.
My question is to Malavika.
Yes.
The examples that you gave, say the example, let's take the example of a sales manager. Yeah. I get the feeling that, of course, it was a case of the staff not having certain skill sets, but the sales leader himself, probably he needs to have develop his coaching skills. It was good that he sought external help and asked you to get involved. But it seems to me that he's the one who needs help. He's the one who needs coaching skills, because he's not talking to his staff, and therefore he's totally unaware of what the problems are. Correct me if my understanding is correct. And on your other examples where you're talking about how to negotiate with somebody who is your superior. So you are a technology head and you have presented something to the board and you want to get the board support. On situations like this, I think it's of paramount importance that you speak the same language. If you do not understand how your superiors are going to evaluate a proposal or judge a particular case, you stand no chance. And that applies across the board for any situation. So it's more than negotiation skills, it was just equipping yourself with the right knowledge so that you can speak the same language first and then support or build your argument. So that's my question to you, that is it more of developing your knowledge so that you speak the same language so that then you can argue, or rather you develop your negotiation skills?
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question, Das. It's very interesting. Let's take the first example of the sales leader. You tell me, how many times when we go through our performance appraisals, do you get appraised for your coaching skills? Do you get appraised for that? I got appraised for innovation skills, yes. At DHL, when I went for a performance appraisal, innovation, yes, never for coaching. The whole idea is that many a times the sales leaders today have no time to do coaching. They know that it is important, but then they are themselves talking to sales managers who are almost 10 to 12 years of experience. And most of these sales managers, they feel that they know it all. They have the right knowledge, they have the right experience. That's one part. The second is that how many times do sales managers go up to their sales leaders and say that I have a problem? I could never go and talk to my boss and say that, I have a problem. It was always a status update. It was always that, yes, we are going out there, and as a salesperson, you are assertive, you want to make that happen. It's very difficult for sales managers in the middle management to go out and seek help. So even though the sales leader understands that, yes, the coaching is required, they don't have the time, or the sales managers don't have the mindset to accept that coaching. That's one part of it. The second about the person of, when you're dealing with the steering committee and how you're negotiating with them and how they're, yes, of course, you need to speak the common language, but many a times we find that in the steering committee, there are people who are in different locations. You don't get to know them enough, and that's where the problem starts. I had a classic example when I was trying to do a shared service centralization, and I was trying to negotiate to get shared service center up in Mumbai. I had my bosses to tell me, oh, Malavika, just look at Mumbai, Bangalore, and 2 more cities in India, and just make a business case and just come out with a presentation, and I think we should be able to go through. So your boss is giving you the way, and I said, oh, fine, I'll do all of that. Suddenly in that steering committee, I had a person from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And the first question that he asked me was, Malavika, it's great that you have these 4 cities up. Why have you not looked at Kuala Lumpur? Now what do I do at that point in time? I didn't have enough information about him and his thoughts. And I thought it's okay that my bosses said and the senior manager said, just look at 4 cities in India and just go for it. And I stood there in the presentation slide, taking a mouthful and saying, all right, and I did best as I could to safeguard my presentation. So many times we know, sometimes we don't. But yes, of course, negotiations and coaching skills are extremely, extremely important. But yes, we've got to manage and speak the same language also. Thank you.
Can I just go ahead? Yeah, tough. Just want to pick up on a point about not having time to participate or to engage staff in using coaching. I think this is this is a misunderstanding that's fairly prevalent. It's certainly prevalent in Australia, and it's associated with the view, I think, that people see coaching as something that you do to others. That, you know, now I'm coaching, this is what I'm doing to you, rather than seeing coaching as a way of being with people. And so this is kind of the distinction that I was trying to draw before in the presentation that I was giving around the idea of coaching as a managerial style. And I think if we start thinking about it in those terms, then coaching can happen as just part of the ordinary exchange and interaction that would take place at any time of the day. It's not something that requires half an hour to be petitioned off in the diary or an hour to be petitioned off, and now we put the coaching hat on and now I'm coaching my staff. That's not the case. It's more about thinking about it as a style, that we ask questions about around goals and ask questions about goal clarification to help people get clear on where they're going and what they're trying to do. We ask questions about strengths, we ask questions about progress, just in the ordinary cut and thrust of our interactions. So that getting away from this idea that it's one more thing that I've got to have on my list that I have to do today is coach people, because that can just lead people to go, wow, I'm already too stressed, I'm already too busy, I haven't got time for this as well. I don't think that's a helpful attitude to have, and it's actually out of line with what it really requires.
Live it.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Jasmine, you want to add on some comments?
Well, I just want when I worked for Apple, so I was corporate coach and trainer. One of the key factor, this makes sense for everyone, the coach should coach the leaders as well. Because I belong to the sales and development team, so which is I'm not belong to the HR side or learning development side. It's really attached to the business development. So we coach the employees together with their line managers, and sometimes we crush each other because our language to those people are quite different. So in the end, what we develop is it's not just coaching for the employees to maximize their performance. It's so essential to coach the leaders as well. Not like because I know better than you, no, because we have to speak the same language. Because this is should be a very much aligned strategy, but everyone has a very different idea. So in the end, we implemented coaching leadership program for the line manager. So yeah, pretty much it's combined the idea. Thank you.
So, Boris, gentlemen.
Finance, I'm in charge of Crédit-Agricole Corporate Investment Bank in Singapore. I thank you for your presentation. I think it was very interesting. I have a question. I think that the engagement of people, of staff, is something which is very, very important. And I share totally the view that we are consistently coaching our people in order to get their engagement. Now, can you remind, I know it's late, perhaps it won't need an hour, for you to just remind us about the main psychological needs we need to think of satisfying among our staff. What are the basic for you, the basic we should always think of?
Psychological needs?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I can answer that in 3 minutes, or I can answer it in 2 days. But the answer would be much the same, just the detail will vary. So certainly all the research that I'm doing in this area, looking at employee engagement, is looking at 3 basic psychological needs that we think are important to fulfill, regardless of culture, age, gender, any other delimiting factor. And those 3 needs are the need for autonomy. So that's a need that's associated with having a sense that what you do in life, in any domain of life, is self-initiated, that there's a sense of choicefulness about that, that I have a way in which I understand my behaviour, and it sort of connects with something that resonates for me or is important to me. So a sense of autonomy. Another basic need, a sense of competence. I don't think there's anything controversial about that. That's the sense that we feel that we are effective and we are acting within our environments in a way that is making a positive difference to the world. And the third is a sense of relatedness, a need for relatedness, that we have a sense that we are well connected to those around us and significant people in our life, that we are part of relationships where we are able to provide support for others and we are prepared to receive support in return. So I think those three basic needs for me make a lot of sense. Need for autonomy, need for competence and need for relatedness. I see managers having a particularly important role to play in doing that. And so the most obvious objection that people will raise in response to that is, well, within organisations, you don't often have much choice about what you do. You know, we have to operate and we have to perform in line with company strategy, with the goals that get cascaded down through an organisation that send us in the direction we want to go, and that's true. But I think there's ways that we can still continue to support people's sense of choicefulness about how they might work on those goals, even though they might not necessarily self-select them. They might not necessarily decide, you know, but we can still try to find ways of maximising people's sense of choicefulness and self-initiation. So I think there are ways, even in, you know, often tightly controlled organisations, where we can still give people a sense of that. Competence and relatedness, managers do that, they should be doing that every day, finding ways to acknowledge good performance, finding ways of, you know, helping people to play to their strengths. These are basic things that support competence. And relatedness, I mean, that's your basic rapport building, building trust. You know, it's all the core sort of interpersonal skills are wrapped up in building that sense of, you know, good relation to others that's grounded in genuineness and trust and honesty, etc., etc. So I think those basic needs, I think that the research that we're doing right now, it's too early to tell whether it's going to show up strongly in the data, but initial indications are that we're seeing what we expected to see, is that when those three needs are supported, it tends to be associated with higher levels of engagement. All right? And we're doing that across two different studies at the moment. One's coaching focused, one's not. But we're basically playing the same, we're using the same basic model. And so far, the results are you know, showing up as we expected to. I'd have to come back next year and tell you how that happened. But that's so I could talk a whole lot more about those three needs, but I see them as being particularly fundamental.
Okay, so this lady.
I was very interested in how the coaching can kind of going into the negotiation training. And with regards to that, I was thinking about when it comes to coaching or training negotiation, I think it is quite a sensitive topic because it involves two parties. And there is a clear winning strategy of one person's, and whereas the other person is defeated. So I was curious how in the learning space, creating the learning space, how do you address to develop the safe environment for people to learn negotiation skill without taking the feedback in a personal manner, or not being in a really focus on the learning itself. So yeah, basically building trust that this is going to be my learning, not be my defeat or winning strategy against someone else that is participating too. Yeah, so that's my first question. And my second question is, how do I negotiate my salary better?
I don't know which one is a difficult one.
So maybe
Jasmine, do you want to?
Jasmine, it's probably a better question.
Okay, so I do remember your second question, but I can't remember the first one. Okay, so you have to let them have a better opening and a better questioning skill. So to avoid the conflict between these two partners, especially in the government officer, yes, very sensitive, because nobody wants to see their weakness point, the weakness as a negotiator. And also, if I can't make a very good grounded between this topic, then they're gonna fight each other, and also they will not take any takeaway. So it's very important. This is just a snapshot of to improve your negotiation skill. So don't take as a personal feedback too much. So make sure everybody understand that, because sometimes you fail. After several negotiation simulation, it's a very tough negotiation simulation. So sometimes you fail, but that doesn't guarantee you're gonna fail tomorrow negotiation. But what we encourage them is to reflect them where is the blind spot, what we mentioned before. And also, it's so important to let them have a better questioning skill. Otherwise, they're going to talk about weakness only. You have some issue. You know what? This is your issue too. And then you're going to give me a feedback. You know what? You have a same issue. So this is the conversation is quite, can be happen. So it's really, really make sure that everybody has the same idea. Okay, this is a very good learning journey. You can take a very good tip. So we ask them about growth model. So going through the strengths is so important. And then this question, this answer actually back to the this gentleman's question as well. The one psychological term to be a better negotiator or to be a better leader is, I really believe, is knowing about your strengths. Because my loads of managers that I coach or that I work together in corporate side, they do acknowledge their employees' weakness a lot, because they do believe that this is your area for improvement. But when I ask them to write down about strengths map about your team, so can you name it each individual's strengths? Actually, they are struggling to pick up the right words for them. But they are so into the weakness part. So again, you have to shift to your idea. Okay, we're gonna make a mutual agreement, mutual outcome. So I'm gonna help you out to see yourself better, and then you help me out in the same way too. So this groundwork is so critical. That's what I found it.
Now I'm getting warmed up. Almost finished. I think your question's a really important one, and it's not a question that just relates to negotiation as a skill set to be developed. I think feedback per se is challenging for people. A lot of people see feedback in a very negative light, particularly within organisations, because it tends to have been handled, I think, really badly. People get focused on deficit, people get focused on what they can't do rather than what they can do. And so one of the things that automatically happens, even when you say the word feedback, is psychologically people start shutting down. They start to become defended. It has a particular physiological response associated with it. There's been a lot of work that's been done recently looking at these types of organisational processes and what might be better conditions to create to actually open people up to feedback and get them seeing feedback actually more as it's just what it is, a form of information that can be used. So there's an academic at Harvard, Richard Boyatzis, who some of you might be familiar with, who has focused a lot on the importance of positive emotions in facilitating change and growth. And he talks about the importance of doing things that actually elicit positive emotions in people prior to feedback events. So in other words, doing things that help people to connect with the best parts of themselves, their strengths, the things that they're good at, actually getting people to write narratives, getting them to really focus substantially on their strengths, getting them to engage in that process prior to then introducing different forms of feedback, so that people can then make sense of that feedback in a bigger context. And you see this done abysmally in a lot of organisations, 360 feedback processes or other forms of feedback. And it just, I think what happens is people get themselves into an anxious state where they just cannot begin to start to put together a better plan for moving forward, because they're too busy trying to defend themselves, fortify themselves, and protect their sense of self. And so I think organisations have to do a hell of a lot better than they currently do around creating processes that allow people to actually take feedback on in a way that they can use it and move forward. So there's really interesting work being done in positive psychology, positive organisational scholarship, etc., that have implications for not just the world of negotiation, but a whole raft of other skill sets in organisations.
If I can add to that one.
Yeah, Malavika?
Yeah. I think it's also interesting, that's experience that we have, that after the 360-degree feedback is done, you don't go back to your boss at all. Or you don't go back to your people around and discuss it with someone. It's very threatening to discuss a 360-degree feedback report. And that is why many a times external consultants and external coaches are brought into companies and say, why don't you go and talk to so-and-so? Many a times in 360-degree feedbacks, the problems are with us and with the boss and the relationship that we have with the boss. And we're unable to find trustworthy partners within the organization to even talk about it. And I think that's really critical, where organizations have to move forward and get their leaders to have those coaching skills to manage such very difficult conversations.
Okay, so you have the second question, right? So maybe if you don't mind, maybe because the time is almost, we delay a little bit. So maybe I reply for the last question, and then because the question I taught negotiating over the past years, thousands of negotiators. A lot of people at the end of negotiation workshop ask me this question. So that's why I think we deserve to spend some time. But I won't give you the silver bullet, which means the one way you can definitely negotiate a better salary with your boss. No, not this kind of recommendation. But I can give you 3 quick ones. Can improve your negotiation in terms of salary. Okay, the first is not only think about the numbers. Okay, in terms of we say the salary, your package, your the total compensation package. It's not only salary, right? I mean salary, title, bonus, variable pay. The holidays, training program, your job title, the other development plan. So negotiation is a give and take. If you only focus on numbers, it is called bargaining, not negotiation. So if you would like to negotiate a better package, try to break it to the different elements and then try to see which one is your first priority. If it's number, that's fine. But what's your second priority? Because you cannot say, if I cannot increase my salary, and then what's the second? So you think about the different elements. And then the second recommendation is sometimes you will be powerful. It's not because you have a lot of solution at the table. It is because you have a good solution away from the table. Which means that if you cannot settle down the deal with your boss, what you will do? Which means that, did you find a better alternative? Did you have already get a good prospects about the job opportunity in some? Of course, I didn't say that. I would like to encourage you to create your current company. But in terms of negotiation, sometimes you are powerful because not only because you have a good solution at the table, it's because you have a good alternative, so that you can leave the negotiation table and then make your life better. So this is the second recommendation. And third one is the power of data. Sometimes we negotiate based on relationship, emotion, but you forget to collect enough data, benchmarking, argument, justification criteria. Why you need more salary? Why? What's the justification? Because of your performance is better than the others? It's because benchmarking with the other, the same position in other markets, you are lower paid. So did you spend a lot of time to think about those hard data? So based on the limited time, this is the serious condition. I can quickly reply to.
I just want to make one last point. Yes. I love to get the last word. In response to your question, just as a contrast, to coach you around your question, if we were to do that, and we wouldn't do it here, but if we were to do that, the starting assumption would be, as I began my presentation by saying, would be that within you, the assumption is that you know something about good negotiation. You've got some experience of having done it previously, either in your job role or in life in some way. So the questions would be all about seeking to try and help you to think about, well, yeah, I could tell you, I might have that experience, but let's spend a moment seeing how much you can bring out on the table in terms of starting to shape a good approach to that particular negotiation that you're talking about. And so it'd be quite a different, you can go to the experts and you can have the more mentoring approach, but we could start another way as well and start with the assumption that you actually probably know a hell of a lot about what to do to have that effective negotiation. So let's spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes talking a little bit about that. When have you been really effective in negotiating with your boss on anything? Right? Those sorts of questions, pulling those out and giving you an opportunity to start to shape the solution means you hold on to it better. So I just want to throw that in as a little contrast in how we can go about helping you with this. I wish you good luck too. I mean, that's
I think Golden's last comment perfectly demonstrate the topic we set up: negotiation and coaching, and then how the two disciplines can support and help each other. So can we applaud again for the three speakers? Thank you so much again for your comments to ESSEC Asia Pacific. So if you are interested in our negotiation related course or something, we will project some information on the screen. Okay, so look forward to see you again soon in ESSEC. Thank you.
Thanks.